Hey, if you're watching this video in order, yesterday or the day before, we just did a lesson about influences. So my son Gio has been voluntold to help me film this video, and it's all about the teen brain and making choices. So in class, if you have me in class, you probably just went over a part that talks about how teenagers tend to make, and for some adults for that matter, they tend to make decisions just on emotion, and it's quick, and it's like I said, emotion driven, and you do things like YOLO, and you're like seize a day, and let's just go and do this, and you make these emotional decisions. Well, a former student, her name's Ashley, she said a quote one time that hangs in the health classroom in school, and it said that being a teenager is a series of big decisions that can make or break you. And some of them aren't that big, but some of them are big. So why do teens, and some adults for that matter, make emotional decisions so fast? Okay, so to do this, we're going to do a little bit of a simulation. In the camera. This is a simple little bowl. We're going to pretend that it is a skull, okay? This is a skull. Make it go up here high so you can see right in here. And this bottle of milk, Dairy Pure brand, that's going to be your brain. Okay, so you can put it down more so that you can get closer. We're just going to fill it up completely. Okay. All right, now, in this brain, over here, hold it. In this brain, we have a series of messages that you get. Like I said, this is coming after the lesson about influences. And we're going to use these food coloring colors to represent the messages that you hear, AKA the influences that you hear. So Gio, an influence of a person, a place, or something that you can learn from. And obviously I'm one, so what am I? Your
teacher or dad.
Your dad. So parents tell you some things, your teachers tell you one thing. Who else or where else can you learn things from as a young person? Louder.
Yeah, I school. Well, I used to teachers, but school, social media. I guess you can do sports, television, yeah.
Movies, music. He's being nervous. I don't understand why. Okay, so that's one thing. That's where you can learn from as a teenager. But then there's other messages that you hear that are mixed messages. So we're going to use blue now to represent mixed messages that you may hear about drugs. And let's be specific. Let's talk specifically about marijuana. So what are some mixed messages that you may hear about marijuana? And just so you know, that's what it looks like. So you got to keep it in center. Don't move it from center. So what are some messages you might hear about marijuana? Just say one at a time.
That it's not a drug.
Not a drug?
Well, it's a gateway drug.
Oh, it can be a gateway drug.
It's dirty.
It's dirty.
Not a big deal.
Not really a big deal.
And it's all natural.
It's all natural. So is plutonium.
And yeah, I mean.
Anything else? No?
It doesn't harm you.
It doesn't hurt you. Okay. So blue and green are mixed in there together. And we're going to use red to represent sex. So what are some mixed messages that young people hear about sex?
That everyone's doing it.
Everybody's doing it.
You need to wait until you're ready.
Okay.
You need to wait until marriage.
Okay.
It's just what couples do.
It's just what couples do. Okay. Yeah.
It's fun.
It's fun.
It's scary.
It's scary. It hurts. No.
You should only have one partner.
Okay.
And if you love me, then you'll do it.
If you love me, you'll do it. All right. If you really love me, then you'll wait. But anyway, go ahead. Is there anything else?
Not really.
All right, so those are mixed messages. So what we have here is we have all of these mixed messages, and I'll put some light on it just to shine on it. You have some greens, you have some reds, you have some blues. They're all mixed together. And I'm just going to add a couple other colors too, because maybe you have messages about how long you should be on the internet, or what you should wear, and and you should be real thin, or it's okay, be bluties on the inside, or do this or do that. So you have all these different mixed messages that are pulling you in all these different directions. And then what we end up doing is, because you're a young person, now let me go through some reminders for a second. Rewind back to 10 years old in 5th grade. And there's some messages that you have to remember about puberty changes. So once you started puberty, somewhere between people with a female sex assigned at birth, you can, thanks Gio for your help, for people with a female sex assigned at birth, you tend to start puberty somewhere between the ages of 8 and 10, and you're stopped physically growing between the ages of 15 and 16. And people with a male sex assigned at birth, you tend to start puberty between the ages of 10 and 12, and you stop physically growing between 18 and 19. Well, when you're doing that, there's a part of your brain that finishes growing last. The last part of your body that physically finishes growing is the frontal part of your brain. And the frontal part of your brain tends to work with motor skills, but it also works with logic. It works with logical decision making. So it's not grown and in full function yet when you're still in middle school or high school. So you add 1 drop of something else to that, one tiny little drop, and what you have is a kaleidoscope of color. As you can see, all of the colors start mixing. It was just one tiny drop. They're bubbling. And what you end up having really is a kaleidoscope of not just color, but a kaleidoscope of confusion. Because eventually all those mixed messages get jumbled up. Now, there's exceptions to this rule, obviously, because again, with the influences lesson, we talked about how all of your influences ultimately shape your behaviors, because your influences cause you to have a worldview, and your worldview causes you to create values, and they cause you to create beliefs, and they ultimately cause you to have your behaviors. But you also have to remember that some of your influences tell you about consequences. So your parents set rules for you that you decide to follow or not follow, and things like that happen. As we go forward, let me start sharing my screen and show with you the actual web page that we're talking about inside the Team Brain. It would be extremely helpful if you went and read the top of this page, but also watched this video. And if you have me for class, I'm going to be telling you to watch this for an assignment. Start it at 6 minutes. Between 6 and 10 minutes is Teenage Brain Explained by SciShow. It will basically tell you the same thing that I just told you, but without stumbling over their words. The PBS video Inside the Teenage Brain also does a lot about the section that I just spoke about, how the frontal cortex is the last part to be able to add. But we go on and we end up having these choices and decisions. And some choices are things that they're life-changing. And we have to recognize this and remember this. So what am I really talking about? So you can have small decisions like, do I do my homework or not do my homework? Should I study or not study? What music should I listen to? What genre of music should I listen to? How should I listen to it? Should I do it on MP3? Should I go and get an old-fashioned CD? Or should I listen to it on vinyl? What should I wear? Like things like that. What should I eat? When you wake up in the morning, you probably make 4 or 5 decisions before you even go downstairs to get ready to go to school when you have regular school. What should I wear? When should I eat? What kinds of things should I do like this? And then you have more serious choices, right? Like how to handle stressors, how to handle life's daily pressures, whether or not to use drugs, whether or not to drink. If you're going to drink, how much should you drink to keep it safe? I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying, if you're making the decision to drink, am I going to have one? Am I going to have two? Am I going to make sure I sleep over the person's house? Like, those are all choices. Who should I hang out with? Who should I talk to? Who should I like? Who should I like, right? Maybe it's once you're with a peer group, a friend group, or even a significant other, like, what kinds of things should I do with them? If they're doing something that I'm not comfortable with, should I go or should I leave myself out? Some of these decisions sound easy to some of you, but some of these decisions you have a hard time with. Right now, pause this video, not even pause this video, but just think for a second. How many of you have a hard time saying no when somebody wants you to do something? And just be honest. And I don't mean you can't say no. I mean, you have a hard time saying no. I don't want to disappoint my friends. I don't want to disappoint whatever. What happens when it comes to your significant other? What happens later on in the year, the big question when we talk about sexual health is going to be, what role do you want sex to play in your life? And yes, we're going to talk about abstinence, but we're also going to talk about, if you're choosing to be sexually active, how to do it safer with contraception and number of partners and things like that. But right now, what happens if you're with a significant other and one person wants to be sexually active and the other person doesn't? Do you just give in? So some of you are like, no, of course not. And others are like, I don't know. I have a hard time saying no. So when it comes to sex, who's it going to be with? When's it going to happen? If I'm with somebody, how far am I willing to go? How far am I going to go? How do I get consent? Should I wear a condom? Should I not wear a condom? Should I use birth control pills? What type of contraception? Is it going to be a serious relationship? Is it going to be superficial? I don't know. So these are big decisions. So all decisions and all choices, whether they're small or whether they're big, they're ultimately problems that need to be solved. And this website has a few decision-making models on it that you should look at. And some of you have practiced them before. And the bowl of milk video that we're talking about right now, it's going to be posted here. But it really comes down to, you have a conflict that needs to be solved. And if you want help with that, look at the mouse. You can go and you can click on the conflict resolution page, and you can read some stuff about conflicts and resolution. You can also get more ideas about solving problems on the stress management page. But really, for quick review, for middle school, there are 3 types of conflicts: me versus myself, me versus you, and me versus nature. Me versus nature is irrelevant with this particular conversation. So me versus you is the same thing as saying an external conflict. It's a problem you have with someone else and a problem that needs to get solved with someone else. But me versus you conflicts are internal conflicts. And every single decision that you have to make, every single problem that you have to solve, ultimately starts with an internal conflict. And there's something that you have to remember when it comes to that. You can't play the blame game. It's nobody else's fault when you make a bad decision. It's not who influenced you. It's not who you went along with. You ultimately made that decision. Well, Karabi, you said our behavior comes from our influences. That's absolutely right. But if your influences are bad influences and you go along with them, it's your fault for going along with them. Now, I'm not yelling at you. I'm not coming at you, but I'm being truthful. You know, you can't play the blame game. You can't get angry about it. You can't have self-pity. You can't go and say, oh, it's not my fault. It is when you make that decision. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't fix it. That doesn't mean you can't apologize for it. That doesn't mean you can't make good for it. That doesn't mean that you can't make corrections. But you do have to recognize and remember that you can't play the blame game. You have to jump on the choice train. Little 5th grade quote that high school age people tend to laugh at, but it makes sense. You know, stop that blame game and then take responsibility. And along with that, again, I don't want you to feel bad because you can think about your choices and you can learn from them. My senior quote in the yearbook when I graduated in the class of 1993, I know I'm old, from Massachusetts High School was, "The future begins with the past." And that's words of wisdom. I'm not actually sure where I saw that from, but I didn't make it up. But the future does begin with the past. And when you learn from the mistakes that you made in the past and you don't keep repeating the same mistake over and over and over again, you really make yourself a better person, a stronger person, and you learn from that. One of my students 2 or 3 years ago, they found this quote. I think it was on Instagram or Snapchat or something like that. And they found this image, and I don't know where they got it from other than that, but I'm sharing it with you. And if we were in class, I would do this using a dollar bill instead of a $20 bill. And I'm just going to read it for you, even though you can read it yourself. A well-known speaker started off his seminar by holding up a $20 bill. In the room of 200 people, he asked, "Who would like this $20 bill?" Of course, hands started going up. He said, "I'm going to give this $20 bill to one of you, but first let me do this." He crumples up the $20 bill and crushes it. And then, I'm just going to go off the reading for a minute, and he crumbles it up and dirties it and like whatever. Then he opens it back up and he's like, "Who still wants a $20 bill?" And the point is, it's still $20. So the end of the statement says, "My friends, you have all learned a very valuable lesson. No matter what I did to the money, you still wanted it because it did not decrease in value. It was still worth $20. Many times in our lives, we are dropped, crumbled, and ground into dirt by the decisions we make and the circumstances that come our way. We feel as though we are worthless, but no matter what happened or what will happen, you will never lose your value." So basically, what I'm saying is, even though I'm going and pointing out to you that it may be ultimately your fault if you made a poor decision, it really makes it so that you don't have to let that decision own you. You can own that decision and learn from it. But you can also think from here on out and stop for a minute before making decisions emotionally and start making decisions logically. One last thing, the next time after seeing this bowl of milk activity or watching the professional bowl of milk activity video that somebody else made other than me, that's on our website, or examining what that means on the SciSo video or the PBS video, and you can understand fully what's happening with the frontal cortex of your brain. The next time your parents say to you when you do something stupid, "What were you thinking?" Your honest to goodness answer was, I really wasn't thinking. All right? If you're one of my students in the fall of 2020 and you just finished watching this video, don't forget to watch those other videos that you need the facts from. Hopefully you got good notes from this. You didn't need to write a ton, but the main idea was decisions are quick. When you're a teenager for sure, but even some adults, that the decisions tend to be fast because they're emotionally driven, and you have to pause before you go and make choices and decisions so that you let your brain and your logic make the decisions and not your emotions and your hormones and your just energy. All right? Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.